So thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. We really, really appreciate it. I'm Danielle Gunn. I'm Chief Communications Officer for the Planetary Society. We're the world's largest independent space interest organization. And we are here today at the Capitol to speak up against the staggering, unprecedented cuts being proposed to NASA's science budget. We have gathered a coalition of 20 national space, science, and educational organizations who have brought a combined 300 advocates from all over the country who are walking the halls of Congress right now to speak with their representatives and urge them to fund NASA science. We will hear from select speakers today, including Bill Nye, CEO of the Planetary Society, Representative Glenn Ivey of Maryland's 4th District, Marcel Agueros, President-elect of the American Astronomical Society, and Brandon Jones, President of the American Geophysical Union. After our speakers give their brief remarks, we'll open it up to press Q&As, and if anyone is interested in any one-on-ones, we can also arrange those for you. So we will go ahead and get started with our first speaker, Bill Nye, CEO of the Planetary Society. He's joined by members of our board of directors, Newton Campbell, Bethany Ellman, Brittany Schmidt, and Robert Picardo.
Good afternoon. I am Bill Nye, CEO of the Planetary Society, an organization representing nearly 50,000 people around the globe. Every day, citizens like you and me who believe the exploration of space is worthy use of our intellect and treasure. Rovers on Mars looking for the elusive the space program. These proposed cuts would force the premature termination of dozens of missions. Fully functioning spacecraft summarily turned off. Development work on virtually every future science mission summarily halted. We're not talking about delays in scientific exploration. We're talking about the end of it. While we're checking out, our competitors are checking in. There will be new Sputnik moments. Taikonauts of the China National Space Administration will almost certainly walk on the moon in the next 5 years. China Space will almost certainly return rock samples from Mars, which may carry the elusive evidence of ancient life before we can. Stunning pictures of these events will appear on the main page of every website, with every microphone button. We're back in business. Like, we wouldn't have this technology without space, you guys. We wouldn't have these cameras without space exploration and charge couple device cameras. So this is a turning point. This is a key point in this history of space exploration, and for me, for us, a key turning point in the history of the United States. These pictures of people walking on Mars, these pictures and images of rock samples brought back, people walking on the moon, rock samples brought back from Mars, will be on the front page of every newspaper. They'll be on the main page of every news website in the world. And so that's why we are all here today. 20 national organizations have come together. Over 300 supporters from every corner of the country have traveled here on their own dime and on their own time to walk the halls of Congress and save NASA science. This is not a luxury. It is a responsibility. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the U.S. Constitution recommends to Congress that they promote the progress of science and useful arts. It's in the Constitution. So commercial companies may provide transportation to orbit, and they may provide some major spacecraft components, but when it comes to exploration, there is no private option. There is no business case for the search for extraterrestrial life. There is no profit to be made studying Saturn's mysterious polar storm. No one is cashing in on whatever dark matter does to influence the motions of our galaxies and other galaxies in the cosmos. Yet NASA science is a bargain. For every dollar spent, at least 3 come back into the economy. Last year, NASA's investment in science generated more than $20 billion of economic growth and supported over 80,000 jobs in all 50 states. Shutting off this economic engine would be microphone buttons to pass a budget into law that protects NASA and NASA science. NASA's exploration of space is where, as Teddy Roosevelt said, we dare mighty things. Cuts to NASA science will not make the U.S. stronger. Investing in it will. Let's keep the United States the world leader in space for all of us and for generations to come. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, it is my honor to introduce a man who hails from my mother's home state, the great state of Maryland. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Ivey. Woo! Okay.
I'm going to stay away from that microphone button. Let's hear it for Bill Nye. All right.
If you open your folder, you could hit.
I'm going to go without notes, I guess. So we'll and to the Planetary Society. What a turnout! My goodness. Yeah. You guys roll thick. I like this. I like this. In all seriousness, this is an important day, an important moment to be out here, and I appreciate the fact that they've come out in such large numbers to make the point that this is a critical moment for the United States when it comes to science, and NASA in particular. As Bill pointed out, we're falling behind with respect to China. They're pushing money towards, and money and engineers and scientists towards advancing science in China, competing against us, while we're doing the exact opposite. The White House almost wants to zero out NASA science. And if you look at the other cuts across the board with respect to NIH and other key departments and agencies, we're doing all the wrong things. We need to, instead of choking off the pipeline of talent, we need to expand it so we can bring more people. I was a kid when we first started landing on the moon, and I remember we'd roll the TVs into the classroom so you could actually see it. And it inspired a whole generation of scientists watching that and just imagining what was possible and wanting to be part of that. We need to make sure we continue to do that work, continue to inspire the next generation, give them paths forward, whether it's respect to college or graduate school or internships and fellowships at places like NASA, so they can learn how to do the work from the people who've been doing it for decades and learning how to make a difference for the public sector here in the United States, but also for the world. So I think it's critical for us to make sure that the United States continues maximum funding. I think the House and the Senate, we're moving in a much better direction than the White House. I hope the House recedes to the Senate because they had even more money in there for the science expansion efforts. But we need to keep that going. So it's going to be a pivotal time when we get back. We're going to keep fighting about, well, I don't know when we're going to get back, but when we do, it's going to be an important moment to make sure we hash this out, commit ourselves to funding science moving forward so we can win the future just like as we have in the past. So with that, I'll turn it back. But thanks so much to all of you all for coming out. Keep up the great work.
And now we have Marcel Agueros from the American Astronomical Society, President-elect.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Marcel Agueros. I'm a professor of astronomy at Columbia University in New York City, and I am the president-elect of the American Astronomical Society, the AAS. The AAS represents more than 8,000 astronomers and astronomy educators. Our mission is to enhance and share humanity's scientific understanding of the universe as a diverse and inclusive astronomical community. I'm here today to request continued support for Congress in advancing this mission, especially in light of the existential threat that astronomy and science as a whole are facing from the President's budget request. Speaking to you today on behalf of the AAS is not something I could have imagined 22 years ago when NASA changed the course of my career by awarding me a Harriet Jenkins Predoctoral Fellowship, and I'm wearing my Jenkins pin with pride. This opportunity set me on a path to be an eager user of NASA's satellite telescopes, and I've been privileged to use data from the Hubble Space Telescope, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, the Kepler Space Telescope, and the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS. And I want to emphasize that I'm naming these missions because each of them represents a groundbreaking marriage of science and technology that has transformed our understanding, and not just of some obscure physical process that might be of interest to a few of us, but of our place in the universe. And my favorite example of this is that when I was in college, it was still unclear whether there were planets outside of the solar system, something that people had debated at least since antiquity. After Kepler launched in 2009, it quickly became clear that there are planets everywhere. To date, Kepler and TESS have discovered 3,500 planets outside of our solar system, and TESS is still finding more. We now think that on average, there is a planet for every star in our galaxy. That is a profound change in our perspective. Having this personal history with NASA is part of what makes seeing the proposed cuts to existing telescopes and the proposed underfunding of NASA's next great observatory, the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, so devastating. NASA has shown an exceptional ability to maintain and repurpose telescopes like Hubble well past their nominal end dates, so that the missions in space today are carrying out cutting-edge science that nobody imagined when they launched. The Roman Space Telescope is the next entry in this list of missions pushing the limits of discovery. Roman will not only revolutionize our understanding of dark matter and dark energy, it is expected to add 100,000 planets to our census. Roman is on budget and ahead of schedule. Underinvesting in it today would not only result in a major scientific loss, it would be a major waste of taxpayer dollars. NASA is also essential to the nation as we train the next generation of scientists. Some of that training is possible because of the NASA grants that support early career researchers, as in the fellowship I received. But I also want to highlight the impact of other NASA programs, such as the National Space Grant College and Fellowship Project. In New York State alone, Space Grant has allowed more than 80,000 students to intern at universities, science centers, and private companies. At Columbia, Space Grant also invested in our department's public outreach program, which reaches thousands of New Yorkers every year, from kindergartners to retirees. NASA's ability to touch the lives of aspiring scientists and of ordinary people remains unmatched. To close, I want to remind us that NASA is part of a broader ecosystem. The National Science Foundation's support of researchers at all career stages is another key ingredient in the success of our field. And the telescopes built and operated by the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy are indispensable counterparts to our space-based observatories. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory recently released its first astonishing images, and if you haven't seen them, I highly encourage you to look them up. And next year, we'll start on what will be a 10-year movie of the night sky. Data from the Rubin Observatory, when combined with data from the Roman Space Telescope, will enable even higher quality science than either of these facilities will produce on their own. It is therefore critical that Congress provide robust support not only for NASA science, but for all of our science agencies. I'm very grateful that Congress has rejected many of the drastic cuts proposed in the President's budget request. I hope that today's very visible groundswell of support will further encourage Congress to fully fund and defend NASA, the National Science Foundation, and the other science agencies that together are amongst our nation's crown jewels. Thank you very much for your time.
Now we have Brandon Jones, President of the American Geophysical Union.
Good afternoon, everyone. As was mentioned, I'm Brandon Jones, president of the AGU, and we are a global organization, the largest professional society for earth and space scientists in the world. We have over 40,000 members across 200 countries and regions. But I'm here also today to talk about the personal impacts of funding cuts over this past year. I just took early retirement last week from the National Science Foundation, where I served as a program director for almost 10 years, and prior to that at another science agency for over 12 years. So I have 20 plus years in the federal government and also working with a professional society to make sure that the research enterprise is as viable and as bolstered as it can be. NSF has been an innovation engine. But those innovations and those discoveries that come out of that basic research have to have somewhere to go. And so when NSF partners with organizations and agencies like NASA to make sure that those innovations move into spaces where they can be, no pun intended, where they can be applied, this is for the benefit of all of society. And during my time at NSF, I mainly worked on workforce development and broadening participation efforts to make sure that all Americans who were interested in science could have that opportunity and make sure they have those experiences. So now we're facing a group or a generation of early career scientists, high school, undergrad, graduate, postdocs, even early career assistant professors at institutions who have just come out of a global pandemic, pushed their way through, and now they're facing this. And so it is up to us as agencies, as professional societies, to continue to build the coalitions that will stand the time honored tradition of sustainability in the sciences and make sure the ecosystem that we know drives the economy and makes the U.S. a leader in science remains. So in closing, I just want to thank everyone that has come out today and all the coalitions. Representative Ivey, I live in Maryland, so thank you so much for what you do for the state. I grew up watching you, so it is an honor for me to be here to speak with them. So thank you all for everything you're doing.
All right, we will open it up for questions. I want to introduce another member of the Planetary Society, Casey Dreyer, our Chief of Space Policy, who helped organize today's Day of Action. So if you have any questions for us, please state your name, your outlet, and who you would like to ask the question to. Any questions? Yes.
Mr. Miller with WTOP for Congressman Ivey. Can you talk a little bit about, there's been cuts in Maryland related to the sciences and how that's impacted the region around?
It's been awful for our region for sure, but across the nation. We've had thousands of federal government employees who've been laid off, who are doing fantastic work at NASA, for example. NIH had a woman come up to me yesterday at church and say that she'd been running a clinical trial. I think hers was pediatric cancer, and she got terminated in the middle of it without completing the clinical trial, which means, it's not like a light switch. You can just pick back up where you left off. They've got to go back and do years to catch up to where they were. So it's a huge impact. It's a terrible impact on the science side. It's really devastating. And as we mentioned, people coming up and trying to go through school, University of Maryland is in my district, but other schools too. Harvard had a real challenge with respect to the administration attacking and trying to block people from going to school there who are on the science track. So it's undermining the country from an intellectual and academic standpoint, from a scientific research standpoint, and I think it's going to be devastating from an economic standpoint, as Mr. Nye pointed out. Oh, yes?
Thank you very much. You mentioned you have so many federal workers in your district. I imagine at some point this is really going to start hurting, the bottom line, folks that are paycheck to paycheck. They're just going to try to make ends meet. Have you spoken to Leader Jeffries at all about how this is going to impact you specifically, your constituents, and what about the political ramifications for you?
Well, it didn't just happen now in my district. This goes all the way back to January 20th. The Trump administration has been pushing people out, no matter what a great job they've been doing, in the thousands as fast as they can out of government service. Obviously, we've talked with the leadership, Mr. Jeffries for sure too, but I think everybody understands, since I think 85% of federal government workers are outside of the DMV, this is impacting everybody across the country. They get it, they feel it, but I think everybody also understands that the fight for health care to try and restore the $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid that were made, and to make sure that the ACA tax credits get extended, because you're impacting millions of people with the potential of losing health care coverage and shutting down hospital facilities and the like across the country. We understand what a big fight this is. My constituents, even the ones who've been fired, even the ones who've been furloughed, even the ones who are struggling to make ends meet, at least so far what I've heard from them is that we need to stay in this fight and be in it to win it.
Are you confident in how Leader Jeffries is going about things, and do you have faith that he's going to bring about the resolution that you're looking for?
I think he's been great so far. If you think back on the votes, I think we had all but one vote in the Democratic side opposing the bill that we're fighting about now. It's like 211 to 1, if I recall correctly. And he's done that over and over and over again. He's held the caucus together. So I think he'll continue to do that, and it'll make a difference. When those health care notes hit, telling people that their rates are about to double or triple, I think the Republicans will start maybe getting a little bit more interested in having a conversation and working this out.
Are you tracking any cuts to NASA or any other science-related elements in the DMV area in relation to the shutdown?
Well, yeah, we're doing both, I think. So we were tracking what the cuts were with respect to the legislation we were just discussing. And that's been a big focus. It went through the appropriations committees. We're not sure how that's going to play out. There'll be a conference to help sort that out. I know that they're tracking the overall impact of the shutdown. They always do. So, we'll see how it goes. You have to see how long it goes.
May I step in? If you want specifics about, by the way, sir, where are you from? With the organization that is? Reuters. I thought, sorry. Casey Dreyer, our guy, has analyzed the effect of NASA budget on every congressional district, and you can find his work on our website. Just want to throw that in.
Yes. Isam?
With Nexstar, this is for anyone. You all mentioned that the president's budget has significant cuts to NASA, but the House and Senate versions were very different from the president's proposal. Do you all have those same concerns about what's coming out of Congress?
And introduce yourself.
Yeah. Casey Dreyer, Chief of Space Policy. Can you elaborate on concerns?
Any concerns about projects being cut or workforce cuts?
The overall gist of both House and Senate is a near full rejection of the proposed cuts to NASA science and broadly around other areas of NASA as well. There are preferred things in the Senate is a more rounded, it basically keeps everything the same. It keeps Earth science and heliophysics and other aspects of NASA science whole. The House has a little bit way to go on that one, but we have some really good provisions in the House budget that mandates minimum spending levels, other key provisions supporting key missions. So there's actually a lot to choose from, we can do a best of both projects or both appropriations bills and really come out with a great NASA budget. So I can't emphasize enough how much thanks we're actually telling Congress today for the work that they've already done, and that this is really, once the shutdown is over, finishing the job on appropriations.
And that's Casey Dreyer, Dreyer. Another question? Yep.
Hi, Audrey Decker with Politico.
Hi.
For Congressman Ivey, just following up on some on a previous question, can you maybe detail more of any of the changes that you're seeing right now going on at Goddard? There's been some buildings being closed down and the budget being enacted before Congress has its say. So what are you seeing in those changes?
Yeah, I think those are good points. Or, they closed the visitor center, for example. The concern, I think, overall is reflected what Mr. Dreyer was just discussing. So in some instances, NASA is one of these, but across the board, the administration is not spending money that was appropriated for certain functions. And they're doing it in a unilateral way. Normally, an administration would come back to the Hill, the so-called four corners, the top leaders on the appropriations committees in the House and the Senate, and run it by them and get a sign-off. The Trump administration hasn't necessarily been doing that. And there's concern about that being done in a more expansive way because the president and Russell Vought have threatened to do more of it, frankly, in the future. So definite concern there, and that's part of what we're trying to have worked out as part of the resolution to the legislation that's got us in the shutdown right now.
What would that be? What would you be asking for?
Well, it's not me. I'm not negotiating the bill. But they're looking for written assurances that the money that's appropriated will be spent the way it's supposed to be spent, according to the appropriations report language and actual language.
Any other questions? Okay, and if you would, yep, go ahead.
I got a question for Congressman Ivey. I'm wondering what your response was to these threats from the White House to do even more cuts to federal workers and more funding cuts when the government funding vote is likely to fail this afternoon. I mean, what are you telling workers, folks here even, who are going to feel the impacts of this, the longer this goes on?
Well, I'll tell you what they've been telling me, which is what's new. He's been doing that since he got here in January. He's been forcing us out, sometimes in violation of the law, sometimes in violation of court injunctions, regardless of whether people are doing their job well or not, regardless in some instances of if enough people remain to continue to do the work that the agency or department is tasked with doing. So they get it. They know that he's going to move forward with firing as many federal government employees as he possibly can. And this is a threat that they don't think is any different from what he's been doing before. And I think they're right.
Any other questions? Okay, if we'd like to arrange any one-on-ones, you can come speak to us after the conference closes. I'd like to thank all of our coalition partners for joining us. Representative Ivey, thank you so much for joining us. Our amazing advocates, take a good picture of those folks. We have more press resources available at planetary.org, and anyone watching can learn more about what the Planetary Society does at planetary.org. Thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.